Are you aware that a large percentage of retirees fail to take the most critical first step in preparing for retirement? Neglecting this step could have devastating consequences for your golden years. If you're a retiree or nearing retirement, listen, this could be you. I'm Kurt Arnold, and on today's episode of Retirement Rescue Weekly, we're tackling one of the most important topics in retirement planning: how to build a retirement paycheck. Now, when you're working, your paycheck is your lifeline. It covers your expenses, lets you save, and gives you financial peace of mind. But what happens when that paycheck stops? In retirement, it's up to you to replace it with income sources you've built over the years. Without a solid retirement income plan, the risks are enormous. You could run out of money, overspend, expose yourself to unnecessary market volatility. But here's the good news. Today, we're going to break it all down step by step so you can retire with confidence, knowing your income is secure and built to last.
Welcome to Retirement Rescue Weekly, where we throw a lifeline to your financial future. This podcast is dedicated to helping rescue retirees from potential dangers that appear in retirement. I'm Kurt Arnold, your host and financial advocate. I'll guide you through the stormy seas of retirement. We'll tackle inflation, taxation, market volatility, and healthcare costs. Together, we'll secure your retirement. Tune in and start your rescue mission today.
Well, hello, welcome to another edition of Retirement Rescue Weekly. I am Kurt Arnold, your financial host and educator. It's great to be with you today. Today, we're talking about a topic that you would be surprised how often this is a misstep for retirement. And we're going to talk about it later in the show about where this comes into play and some of the impact it can have. When we talk about retirement income, it's all about saving for retirement so that one day we don't have to work and then we can live off of our retirement income and our investments and things like that so we can enjoy the life we want. However, a lot of people don't understand how to actually do this right. And then when they get into retirement, things don't go as well as they hope. The markets do whatever they do. They don't think about taxes and all these things. And so we're going to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit today and kind of show some of the things that you need to be thinking about and make sure when you enter that retirement red zone, which is what I always call the 5 years before you retire and then the 5 years after you retire, that red zone is really important because there's so much planning that has to be done. And we're going to talk about the importance of the retirement paycheck being the number one thing we got to get started first before anything else we talk about. Now, before we get into today's show, if you've been watching the news, you've heard a lot about the California wildfires. It's devastating how fast and how devastating the fire can move and all the destruction it's done. The AFI group is located in California, so a lot of our clients are in those areas. Also, we have always been really big about supporting first responders. I have family members. My dad was a firefighter. So we really think it's really important that we are giving back and helping our first responders. So we just want to do a quick thank you to our first responders and everybody that's out there struggling with this disaster right now.
This morning, for the second straight day, millions facing an extreme fire risk in Southern California. The next 12 hours, critical.
Everybody here urges you to remain alert, as danger has not yet passed.
Fire crews scrambling to mop up any remaining hotspots, fearing that powerful Santa Ana winds and dry conditions could rekindle the monstrous Eaton and Palisades fires. Palisades fire now 18% contained as new clues emerge about how it may have started. We witnessed the furious firefighting efforts at that spot as the Palisades fire began to spread.
Just in the past couple of seconds since we've been here, this fire has crested this little hill we're on. The entire basin here is engulfed in flames.
But what was the source of that initial spark? Well, the first signs of the inferno were actually early on Tuesday, January 7th. CAL FIRE says that it started around 10:30 in the morning. Now, this video shows smoke rolling off the hills around the Palisades minutes after 10:30. Now, this satellite image was taken at 10:37. Now, at that point, the fire was a tiny fraction of what it would eventually go on to become. And now we're learning the Palisades fire appears to have started very close to another blaze that broke out just 6 days earlier on New Year's Day.
What are you doing right now to ensure people who are still worried, people who might live in Brentwood or Encino, areas that are currently being threatened potentially, that you guys are doing everything you can?
Yeah, we have crews on the ground 24 hours a day. And the crews don't leave the line until the crew shows up. So there's constantly boots on the ground out there. Where they're mopping up any sort of potential problems, heat in the line within 300 feet or more. We've established what's called contingency lines, which are either dozer lines, hand lines, retardant lines around outside of the actual fire boundary. So if there was an escape, our contingency, either primary or secondary, and in some cases even tertiary contingency lines, are meant to stop and slow the spread outside of the current containment.
Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone being affected by the California wildfires. And of course, we wish the first responders the best as they continue to fight these fires. So today, let's get into today's show. We're talking about how to build that retirement paycheck and how important that is. As I always do, I like to start with a quote. George Foreman, he's a famous boxer, but he also did pretty well later in life with his George Foreman grill. And he actually says that the question isn't what age I want to retire, it's at what income. And it's a really important quote. Is really, really important because you can retire anytime you want, really. But, depending on, how much you put into Social Security, or if you have a pension, or how much you're able to save in investments, that will determine how much income you get. So it's so important that you have the income part set up right so that you can have the retirement that you want. So why do we need a retirement paycheck? Well, when you're working, it's all about making sure you have enough income to cover your expenses. And I think if I bring this back to your memory, you'll be like, yeah, I understand that. And you want to make sure you have enough margin so you can save while you're working for retirement. Because what we're trying to do is stash away money that we can eventually turn into income sources and to fund the goals we have in retirement for later in life. So we got to be able to have that extra income to be able to save for retirement then. So what are the consequences if we have no income plan? Well, you can actually run out of money too soon. You can actually, with spending too much, we could actually spend down too fast. Market volatility, if we're not allocated correctly, a big market drop. Think about 2008. And if that happened, a lot of people try to retire in 2008 and they lost half their portfolio. Even during the pandemic, I actually talked to a couple people during the pandemic where they lost 33%. It felt like overnight, it was like 30 days. But they made some big mistakes because they sold at the bottom and then they missed the entire recovery because they went to cash. So doing this wrong can have a really big impact. It could cause you to delay retirement, or it could cause you to have to do some cutbacks as far as cutting your expenses. And the worst one, of course, is the go back to work plan, where now, unfortunately, you're going to have to maybe go back to work part-time to supplement income. We're going to actually see an example of that later in the show, too. Of what happens sometimes when people don't have that proper income plan. Now, what I want to do today is I want to kind of explain an analogy that I talk about all the time called Mount Everest. And I always ask people in my classes, hey, has anybody here actually climbed Mount Everest? And so far to this day, haven't had one yet. And I'm not going to be one of them either, because that's not for me. I'm not a heights guy. I don't really feel like freezing my tush off. I like having oxygen. It's very dangerous, so it's not for me. But for the people that do it, good for you. But Mount Everest is a picture of retirement. And I always draw this for people when I'm teaching on it. And the way up is all about accumulation. It's about the working years of how, we have to make sure we're saving. We have market volatility. We have inflation. We have taxes. And then we get to the top, the summit, the peak. That's retirement. But I tell them, I said, is that the end of it? And they go, no, we got to get down. And then we'll talk about that part too. So with that being said, let's take a look at the journey up Mount Everest.
Of specifically 29,029 feet. It is classified as one of the 7 summits, an ultra peak, and a 8,000er, meaning that it is one of the 14 summits that are above 8,000 meters. Located in the Mahalangur Himal sub-range of the Himalayas, right dead smack between Nepal and China. Currently, though, there is not just only 2 countries, but there is only 2 known routes to get up to the top of the mountain. The most common of this is the South Ridge, where you come from Nepal. In the modern documented world, it was discovered in 1847 by British explorer Andrew Wagg. Back then, they named the mountain Peak XV, but eventually renamed it after Colonel Sir George Everest, officially in 1865. In today's calendar, as of 2019, it's been said that over 300 people have died climbing this mountain. And by the year of 2013, it was said that there had been at least 6,871 summits done by 4,042 different people.
Climbing Mount Everest is no small feat, just like saving for retirement. The journey to the top, or pre-retirement, is full of challenges, but it's also where you can make the most progress. One of the biggest obstacles on the way up, market volatility. But here's the good news. If you're in accumulation mode, volatility isn't your enemy. It's your friend. Think of it like a Black Friday sale. When the market drops, you can buy investments at a discount. So what's the key? Just keep swimming. Just keep saving.
When life gets you down, you know what you gotta do?
I don't want to know what you gotta do.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. What do? We swim, swim.
Dorino singing.
Another challenge on the climb is taxes. Luckily, when you're working, you got tools to reduce your taxable income, like pre-tax 401k contributions and HSAs. These are like ropes and ladders helping you climb higher and faster.
Let's start with the 401k. This is a employer-sponsored retirement account. Most 401ks have matching contributions where your employer will match up to a certain percentage of what you put in. For example, if you make $50,000 a year and you contribute 4%, you're going to put in $2,000 a year. If your company has a 4% match, that means they're going to also put in $2,000 a year. One of the benefits is it is contributed before taxes, and it's going to go into your account. Then they'll figure out taxes after that distribution has been made to your retirement. So you save on taxes now.
And let's not forget about inflation, the sneaky enemy that's always trying to weigh you down. But here's the advantage of being on the way up. Most employees can increase their income over time, which offsets some of that burden. The closer you get to the summit, the more critical your planning becomes. The retirement red zone, the last 5 years before retirement, is where you lay the groundwork for your transition. This is the time to plan your income sources, assess risk, and fine-tune your goals. Reaching the peak isn't the end of the journey, it's just the beginning. The climb up is all about preparation. Now the descent begins, and that's where things can get dangerous. So the way up actually is easier. And a lot of financial advisors in my industry, that's the part they focus is the accumulation. Like they're whenever you see them, they're more focused on investment returns and allocations, but it's a lot harder on the way down. On the way down, you're going to actually see in the piece that we're going to show you here, it's actually pretty dangerous. There's a part of Mount Everest, which I don't go over in the show, but it's part of the things I learned during my research, called the dead zone. And that's where a lot of people actually, unfortunately, don't make it. Oxygen is, at a different level. It's just more risky. And a lot of people don't make it. And 80% of people that don't make it actually don't make it on the way down. And if you think about it, a lot of people, when it's retirement, it's about focus on how do I get to the top? How do I get to retirement? I want to have enough money saved up so I can stop working. But they don't think about the way down. And the way down actually is harder. There's a lot of other things we have to face, a lot of different challenges. Oftentimes there are similar ones that we fought on the way up, but they hit us differently on the way down. And we're going to show how that affects you in retirement. So let's take a look at this.
Everest is a very inhospitable environment.
Hundreds of people attempt to summit Everest every year during the small once-a-year window that weather allows. Not everyone makes it, and 2023 was an especially fatal year.
So there are a number of things that can kill you on Mount Everest. You fall into the mountain, you fall off the mountain falls on you, but because it's the highest, and because people like to check boxes, it's popular.
Did you know that 80% of climbers who die on Mount Everest do so on the way down? The descent, just like retirement, is where the stakes are the highest, and planning is the most critical. Now you're going to see some of the same challenges that we saw on the way up, but they hit differently on the way down. One of the biggest challenges retirees face is inflation. Monthly expenses can grow by 3% or more each year, while medical costs often rise twice as fast. And here's the kicker. Social Security offers a limited cost of living adjustment, or COLA, and many pensions have no cost of living adjustment at all.
I am 75 years old, and I'm still working to make ends meet. I did not think I would be in this situation after my divorce. I had to make my own way. And my job and Social Security is not enough money to pay for my rent and my life. Inflation has really taken its toll on my finances. And my living expenses are about $3,500 to $3,800 a month, and I only bring in $23,000. Well, it puts me in a position where almost every month I have to spend down the savings that I have, and to make ends meet, I have to use my savings, Social Security, and the job income, and it's scary. When the savings goes down, 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 you don't know how long you're going to live, and you don't know if you're going to wear out your savings.
Not having a reliable paycheck in retirement can make things even harder. The first step down the mountain is building your retirement paycheck, deciding when to start Social Security, when to activate pensions, and how much to draw from your investments.
So here we are getting on the iconic Hillary step. We're about to have to pass people. Be really careful doing so.
And it's not just about income, it's also about taxes. Here's the challenge. 80% of retirement savings in America are held in tax-deferred accounts like 401ks and IRAs. Every withdrawal then is taxed, and once you hit age 73, Uncle Sam forces you to take required minimum distributions, or RMDs, whether you need the money or not.
There's another stipulation with 401ks that you need to know about. It's called the RMD, Required Minimum Distribution. The reason this is because the IRS wants to make sure they get their money at some point. So they allow you to put it in tax-free. They allow it to grow tax-free. And there's a formula the IRS uses, and it's clear as mud. You have to start taking out a required minimum distribution. That's because Uncle Sam wants to make sure he can start taxing on that growth and get the money that he wants.
Market volatility also becomes a bigger threat. Unlike the climb up where time was on your side, retirement forces you to deal with the sequence of returns risk. A big market loss like 2008 could take a decade to recover if you don't touch your money. But the IRS may not give you that option.
If you are a retiree, you have to be paying attention, because if you have to take those required minimum distributions from your retirement accounts this year, you're going to be selling, and that's not going to be a pleasant situation for you.
Many retirees either stay too risky, like they're still climbing, or become too conservative, pulling out of the market entirely. Both extremes can be dangerous. The goal is balance, enough growth to fight inflation, but enough stability to weather the storms. Retirement is the descent, treacherous, but doable with the right plan. With careful preparation and smart strategies, you can make it safely down the mountain and enjoy the view from the bottom. So on the way down, obviously, it's a lot harder. One of the things I learned during my research is, for the people that are considering doing the journey of Mount Everest, it is almost a necessity that you hire a Sherpa. So what's a Sherpa? These are actually people that live in Nepal, that are experienced climbers, that understand the terrain, the weather, all that stuff. They say almost that they're actually considering even making laws that you can't climb without a Sherpa. So that Sherpa is the guide to help them get up and get down. And obviously that's a picture of what I do too. I'm trying to help you make that journey smoother, calmer, less stressful. So again, make sure that you understand how important it is to have a guide as you're going through that journey. Now, when we're talking about the retirement income sources again, how do we build a paycheck? Let's talk about some key components that are going to make up the retirement paycheck. Now, Social Security is always that foundation. And I know there's some people out there like, oh, it won't be around when I'm there. It probably will. It'll be just a little different. It needs some changes. And we talked about that in other episodes. But It's important that you understand when to start your benefit. There's different ages, and we've talked about it in other episodes, so make sure to go back and look at the other episodes about that. But it's important that you don't make a decision just based on what your coworker or your brother or somebody said. Make sure you're understanding what the actual income is for you and for your spouse. And don't get lost in the mix of just, well, we're both retired at 65, we'll take it at 65. Well, what happens if you pass away and we lose one of those Social Securities then? Is your spouse going to be okay later on then? So we have to make sure we're doing spousal maximization. Also, in a situation like my family, my wife was a stay-at-home mom for a good number of years. So she doesn't have those incomes showing up into her Social Security benefit. So her benefit's going to be smaller. So she's going to end up with a spousal benefit later on. So make sure you understand how the spousal benefit works so you can maximize that as well to make sure you're not leaving money on the table. Survivor benefits, making sure you understand how those work, because obviously there are some people that don't even know that they could be claiming survivor benefits, and what the different strategies are. Maybe you start survivor benefits and delay yours, or different ways like that. And understand the tax implications of Social Security as well. So we understand, it is taxable. What other sources are going to affect your Social Security as well. So with that being said, let's take a quick look at Tom Hegna as he explains more about the importance of Social Security.
Here. So when it comes to maximizing Social Security benefits, if I were to ask you, what is the largest retirement asset that most clients have? Is it their 401k? Is it their house? Is it their pension? Or is it their Social Security benefit? For the vast majority of Americans, it's their Social Security benefit. If you're single, it can pay you over $500,000 over your lifetime. And if you're married, it can pay over $1 million. Yet people spend more time planning their summer vacation than how to maximize this valuable benefit.
All right. So if you're one of the lucky ones that actually has a pension, it's really important you understand how the pensions work, how they're calculated, and what's going to make the most sense for your family. Now, like I said, if you're one of the lucky ones, because these are going by the wayside. Some of the government pensions are still around, but the private pensions are no longer being offered or sometimes being phased out. So what are some things to know? Obviously, if you take the single life option, it's going to be more monthly income at first. But if you pass away, your spouse has nothing because that income goes away. So it's important to understand the joint and survivor options. And in some cases, if you're not married, you might want to think about maybe leaving some behind for your child or something like that as well. So it's important to understand those survivorship options. I met with a client the other day. They are a blended family. So when they did their pensions, one of them actually did 75% on survivorship on their pension, and the other one did none. So there is a bit of concern if that spouse passed away and how that would affect the other one. So we got to make sure we understand that before we take these pension options, and make sure we understand the trade-off between the higher paycheck for life or protecting the spouse. So for more about pensions, let's take a quick look at how the pensions work.
You may have access to a pension through your employer. And what a pension basically is a guarantee from your employer to pay you a certain amount of monthly income when you retire for the rest of your life. So that's terrific. I mean, it's hard to save enough money on your own for retirement, but this type of employer benefit, it really can help you meet your retirement goals. So how does it work? Basically, based on the number of years that you've worked there, your age, your salary, a whole bunch of different things, your employer is determining what benefit you're going to get. So let me give you an example. Let's say I make $50,000 a year from my job and I'm getting ready to retire. But I've been there a long time, and my employer, based on their pension agreement, has said, you know what, we're going to pay you a pension when you retire. We're going to pay you $20,000 a year for the rest of your life. So certainly it's not what I was making, but it's a big component of my retirement income when compared with my own savings and maybe some money from Social Security that can help me live at the standard of living I'm used to in retirement. Now, there's two big decisions that most people have to make with a pension. Number one, you have to decide, when are you going to start collecting it? Sometimes there's a range of ages where you're eligible to collect a pension. And if you collect it early, that's good because you're getting the money sooner, but you're usually getting a smaller benefit amount. And that's not going to change. The other decision you have to make is what type of pension option you want to choose. If I'm getting $20,000 a year in a pension for the rest of my life, what happens if I pass away 2 weeks after I retire? Is all of that money wasted? Can any of that money go to my wife, my children, or other beneficiaries? So sometimes there are a variety of pension options that you can choose from with fancy sounding names like 50% or 75% or 100% survivor options. And all that really means is you're making a decision. Do I want more money today for income and I leave less to somebody else? Or am I willing to take a little less income to provide some protection for family members or other beneficiaries?
Now, some retirees may have rental income and actually can provide very good steady income if you have it. Now, don't go run out and buy a property and start renting if that's not something you already have going on. But if you have it, it might be a really good income source. Now, it can provide good monthly income. I've had some that are really nice renters where they don't raise rent for a long time so the renter might really like that. But make sure you're being appropriate with the cost of living adjustments, things like that. So there's potential for that income stream to grow over time as well. Some cons, it can be a headache to have to manage properties. I mean, do you want to get a phone call at midnight because the toilet's plugged? There's some market risk. If you decided you wanted to actually sell the property, are you going to be able to if you needed to? And then, of course, some people don't do this right. I see it a lot where they're putting themselves personally at risk. So if someone fell in the driveway or fell in the bathtub and you didn't have it set up right, they could come after you personally. So you have to really understand the risk. The risk reward could not be appropriate potentially if you don't do this right. So you have to make sure that you really have some clearly defined separation between personal and business when it comes to rental properties. Investment withdrawals, of course, that's where most people are trying to pull from. They're going to pull from that pile of money. And this is where people make the mistakes because they pull out too much. They pull out at the wrong time. They pull from the wrong places. And we're going to talk about sequence of returns risk too. But sequence of returns risk, obviously, if we're pulling at the wrong time when the markets are down, we're going to pull down much faster. And then what's that risk? We could run out of money or we could really greatly deplete what we have. We have to be aware when we're pulling from things that are in the market. What's the market doing? The market volatility. I mean, everybody knows the old rule of thumb, buy low, sell high. But if you have to sell low, that goes against what we've always learned. But we have to because we need income. Or let's say we don't need income and we have to do RMDs, required minimum distributions. Uncle Sam's going to say, hey, at some point in time, I want my tax money. And you have to start taking money out. So if you have to start taking money out, they don't care if the market's up or down. IRS just says, hey, we want our tax money, so you have to start taking money out. So for more on the risk of taking money out of the market as a monthly income stream, let's take a look at this.
That people know how much money they have. If I had everybody watching this right now, just jot down on a piece of paper, how much money have you saved from birth until today? I'll bet everybody could get that number within $500,000 or $600,000, right? But they don't know how much they can get from that money. They think, well, the market's average 12%. Maybe I can get out 12% or 10% or 8%, but you can't. And it's all because of this key issue, the order or sequence of returns. And I know that's what you kind of want to get into.
I do, because this is where we're making our mistake, and it's a huge one.
Yeah. So the day you retire and start taking money out of a portfolio, average returns really mean nothing anymore. Now, this goes against everything you've always been taught because you think, well, heck, of course average returns matter. If I can get 10% is better than 8. If I can get 8% is better than 6. But the day you retire, that's not true anymore. The average returns don't mean anything in retirement. It's the order or the sequence. So let me try to give you an example. Here's a guy in 1973. He had $100,000. He invested his money 50% stock, 50% bonds. For the next 22 years, he averaged 10.1% a year for 22 years, and his $100,000 grew to be worth $846,000. And it doesn't matter if we ran the numbers backwards from 1995 to 1973. Why? Because he still averaged 10.1% a year. He still got a lot of money. That's the way a lot of people think the stock market works. That's the way stockbrokers think the markets work. And that is the way the markets work when you're a saver and an investor. But that is not how the market works the day you retire and start taking money out of a portfolio. So the next slide I'm going to show you is a guy who also had $100,000 in 1973. He also invested 50% stock, 50% bonds. He also averaged 10.1% a year for 22 years. But the next guy retired in 1973. And his broker told him he could take out 5% per year. Now, Steve, you're looking at this. How much did he average? 10.1. He's only going to take out 5, so he's fine, right? Nope, he's dead broke. He completely ran out of money. Now, how do you run out of money if you're averaging 10 and you're only taking out 5? It's because average returns don't mean anything in retirement. It's the order or the sequence of returns. Let me show you. The first 3 years, 1973, 74, 75, the market went down, down, down. Now, if the market goes down the first 3 years of your retirement, there's not much more I can do for you. You're either going to have to put in more, take out less, or you likely will run out of money.
So one of the things we always talk a lot about in my industry is diversification, because we're trying to not have too much risk for the reward. One of the things we talk about when we're building that retirement paycheck is being diversified with our income sources. And we kind of talk about the three-legged stool of income. Now, Social Security is the foundation. I don't care what you say. Some people are saying it's not going to be around when I'm going to get it. It'll be around in some aspect. It's going to change quite a bit. And, for the people that are worried about, it running out in the future, again, there's going to be some changes that are going to happen. But right now, for what we know today, it is the foundation of how we build our retirement paycheck. And it's so important we get this right. And then we also want to look at other guaranteed income sources. Could be pensions, could be annuities, it could be rental income, things like that we can actually know that we're going to get this much per month no matter what. So we think about your expenses are a set amount. We want to make sure we have some set income coming in, Social Security, pensions, and others coming in no matter what every month, so we can have some certainty to our income. And then we have to have some flexible investment withdrawals as well, but we have to make sure we're careful because of, again, the RMDs and market volatility and things like that. So let's take a look at how this works in the real world. So let's say you're a household that between you and your spouse make $8,000 a month. So pretty good, right? You have a pretty good amount of income, and your living expenses are $6,000 a month. It's pretty good. You are covering your needs, and that's the way it works. Now, let's say you're in your 40s or 50s, though, and it's a flip. We have $8,000 a month of expenses. We only have $6,000 a month of income. That doesn't work right. That doesn't math. So then you have three choices you have to do. You either have to find higher paying jobs, find a second job, or you have to start cutting expenses. But we don't want to have to do that in retirement, right? We don't want to have to start changing our retirement because our income is not covering our needs. So let's take a look at how it looks in retirement. So retired couple, they have $6,000 a month of expenses. Now let's look at their guaranteed income sources. They have Social Security, $2,500 a month, and $1,500 a month for $4,000 a month. So right now, the first thing you can see on this graph is they have an income gap of around $2,000 a month, not including inflation over time. So where did they get it from? Well, Kurt, they have their investments. What are you worried about? They have 401ks, IRAs. But right now, that's just a pile of money. It's not income. How do we know how much we can take? How do we know how much we can grow it? What about the markets? What about inflation? What about taxes? All those things we just talked about on Mount Everest. What about all that stuff? Doing this wrong could be devastating. So you probably heard the analogy before, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, in retirement, we talked about diversification. We want to diversify our income streams as well. So we have to make sure that we are understanding how we can diversify. So we don't want to have to rely just on Social Security. We already know there's some risks. If you look at your Social Security statement today, it's going to tell you that the potential decrease in benefits could happen in the next 9 years, and it could be as much as 20% because they're underfunding Social Security right now. Will it happen or not? We don't know. That's what they're saying is going to happen, though. But obviously, it's something that our government will have to address. 40% of people, though, live solely on Social Security. So would that be devastating for them if they have a 20% pay cut? Absolutely. Now, if you're building your retirement paycheck and you have this as your foundation, we have to be aware not to over rely on this. So we have to have some other income sources. Now, cost of living adjustments, you see those every year. You get announced that there's a cost of living adjustment. So for 2025, it's 2.5%. Unfortunately, though, cost of living adjustments typically don't pace with inflation. So our living expenses are going to grow faster than our cost of living on our Social Security, which over time then could cause a deficit. So we have to be aware of that. So what do we do? So let's take a look at this video I found online that I think is hilarious. It's a little girl who is pretty upset when she hears about inflation.
Oh, there's an ice cream van there selling just 2 ice creams
with 2 chewing gums in it.
Yeah.
For bloody £9 for 2 of them.
£9 for 2?
Yeah, £9. That is going to get nowhere. The one that comes on my street is either £1 a p or £2. That is going to get nowhere with that.
No, he ain't, is it?
No, he ain't.
That's well bad, isn't
Yeah,
it?
you should know. And he only does bloody card. Stood there with my cash. Bloody hell.
That's well bad.
All right, we're with you, Marnie. After doing a little bit of math, based off of her discuss, the price of ice cream seems to have risen to more than $11 for 2 treats.
What?
And he only takes bloody cash. The whole thing, undoubtedly a tough life lesson for Marnie. I'll listen to her complain about anything.
All right, so let's look at another source of income, pensions. Now, like I said, not everybody has them. If you work for a government job, you probably have them. Some state jobs have them. A lot of private companies, they don't have anymore. So, but if you do have it, great for you, because it is a good guaranteed income source. Now, a lot of people don't plan for survivorships. I had some that said, well, hey, my pension paid me $4,000 a month. If I would have done survivorship, it would have been a lot less. And that's true. But again, it's not their only income source, because we have Social Security and we have investments as well. But if we don't plan for survivorships and you pass away, your wife loses the entire pension, and that income goes away. And now she has a pretty big income gap. We talked again about private pensions going away. A lot of private pensions don't have any cost of living on it too. So basically what that means is, say like your pension's $2,000 a month, it's going to be $2,000 a month for life. It's not going to grow at all. So your inflation on expenses is going to grow, but the pension is not, which means you're going to have to supplement that to offset inflation with other sources then. Rental income, if you have it, again, make sure you know. Management company, if you don't want to be waking up at midnight to fix a clogged toilet, the management company is going to do that for you, but they're going to take about 10% right off the top to manage it for you. So that's going to be less income for you then if you do that. You got to have a plan too for repairs and maintenance and remodels, because obviously not everybody is a good renter. Sometimes they leave places in a disaster state and you have to go and fix them up, and things break and wear over time. So you're going to have to, to make sure you're making those adjustments as that happens. And then if you have someone who moves out, maybe it takes you a while to find a new tenant and you're going to have a vacancy. And then what happens is that rental income stops for that period of time. So then you have to replace that source from something else, maybe investments. And again, you have to be aware of that potential risk. Investments, we talked about sequence returns risk quite a bit. If we're pulling from our pile of money, we got to be aware of what the market's doing. If the market's up and down or flat, when can we safely get money out and how much can we get out? And then, of course, RMDs are going to have a big impact, because a lot of our money, 80% of the money that's in investments in our country is in tax deferred, because we were told to. We were told to put it into the 401k when pensions started going by the wayside. So now we have money in 401ks or IRAs. They took it out of the company plan, and this money hasn't been taxed yet. So if we need it for income, we're going to take it out of that investment, and we're going to pay tax on it when we do. And then it's going to add to our taxable income. So it means less to us and more to Uncle Sam. So for more on this, let's take a look at this piece about the risk of investments.
First, let's run the numbers. If you're really scared, maybe there's a reason you're scared. Maybe you think you don't have enough money, but you actually do have enough money. And if you've gotten to the point where you are looking at either early retirement, or maybe you're changing your career and you can pull money out of your accounts to help you transition to a new career, this is what you've been intending to do. Save for another purpose, right? Not to save so you have a big pile of money. So what I think is important is you run the numbers first, give yourself clarity. Then if you realize, like, let's say you got $1 million in your account, your brokerage account, and you're going to take, you safely can withdraw 40 grand every year from that account. Set it up automatically. I cannot tell you how important it is for you to automatically make sure that you can have a certain amount a month, $3,500 a month, automatically have it funnel into your bank account. And then it's as if you are paying yourself.
So one of the things I like to teach a lot about when it comes to retirement income planning is the concept of guardrails. Now, guardrails are on the road, but they're not right on the road. They're off the road a little bit to give us some room for error. When it comes to budgeting or understanding living expenses, we need guardrails. And it's important to understand what we have to cover versus what we have to plan for. So let's take a look at Tom Hegna for more on this.
You know, Time Magazine puts it this way: securing at least a base level of lifetime income should be every retiree's priority, at least if you want to live happily ever after. And that lines up with my other book, Paychecks and Playchecks, that said you must cover your basic expenses with guaranteed lifetime income. That's not where stocks fit. That's not where managed money fits. That's not where bonds fit or CDs fit or real estate. That's where guaranteed lifetime income fits based on the math and science behind it.
Now, not everyone's the same when it comes to spending needs. If you don't have a mortgage, maybe you can spend elsewhere, but we got to understand we have to cover our monthly needs first, no matter what. And then we create a plan for how we fund our wants, like travel, giving, going out to eat, things like that. It's important to track our expenses and truly know what we need to live on comfortably. And that pile of money we saved in your 401k and IRA, it's time for it to get a job. We need to plan ahead and decide what some of it will be needed for, whether it's income or travel or funding grandkids' education. And then that will help us determine our investment strategy going forward then, because we can know when we're going to need it and what it's for. It's important to also anticipate changes. Expect things to break at the house. You need to replace a car. You're going to have to expect increased medical expenses as well, and plan for inflation. We know our income needs to grow with our expenses, or else we're going to have an income gap later on. And so it's really important that we understand that. Now, when I talk about guardrails, the first thing I think people think of is it's going to restrict. And actually, their job is to protect. And I know when I say tracking expenses feels like it's restricting, that's by understanding our expenses and setting up our retirement paycheck properly, it now becomes freedom to live the life that you dreamed of for retirement. So some quick takeaways as we end our show today. It's important that you assess your monthly expenses. Now, how do you do that? We talked about that a lot in other episodes, but one of the ways it's easy is just go back the previous month and just track everything that you spent, and also go back and think about your quarterly, annually, biannually, things like that, and think about what are our true things that we're spending money on. And then what are some things that we want to do? And then map out your income sources. Where are we going to get income in retirement? Social Security, what does that look like? Pensions, if we have it, other income sources, and then build a plan that accounts for longevity, inflation, and market risks. Now, that Sherpa plans for a lot of different things, a lot of different factors, weather and oxygen and injuries and all kinds of stuff. That's what I do. We're here to help you plan that out. Now, again, you need to take this information and take action on it. Information without action really doesn't help you. So make sure you're actually really understanding the importance of that retirement red zone and the importance of starting that retirement paycheck the right way. So we set up a free resource, as we always do, to help you get some more information. And this is a resource that's complimentary. It's a retirement income guide to help you understand the basics of some of these different retirement income sources. Now, my staff is putting that in the notes as we speak today. So you can actually get that resource, download it, and then take a look at it and start working on it